Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy. 4 Nerds by Nerds. Hanging out with
Ted.
And today we're going to delve back into Volo's Guide to Monsters for another player race. These may be the gentle giants of the forest, but you don't want to piss them off. Jump down the description below where you can find Nerdarchy, the newsletter, game weekly tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
Alright, so today we're jumping into our Volo's Guide to Monsters, and we're looking at page 106 for the Firbolg.
Now, the Firbolg is a monster originally showed up in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition, Monster Manual 2, I believe, and they really did change the monster's appearance, and I think its demeanor as well.
Yeah, I remember the Firbolg, maybe being a little hippy-dippy, but nowhere near this hippy-dippy.
Yeah, they were a threat. They were clearly a monster. With these guys, just kind of want to be left alone and want to tend the forest.
I don't know. I still see them as a threat, given the intro, which I thought was
before we get into that, two things. One, do you have your copy? No. Go down the description below where you can find a link and help support Nerdarchy and get your own copy from Amazon. The other thing is that we should mention too is we're discussing the Firbolg as the player character race from Volo's Guide to Monsters.
The little intro bit
is good.
We spent 3 months tracking the green dragon before locating the forest in which it sought refuge. On our second day in that place, we woke to find the dragon's head placed in the center of our camp. Sovalis told me that Firbolgs must have claimed the forest, and they wanted to show us we had no further business there. If we lingered, he assured me our heads would be next.
Now, Sovalis, is that the ranger from 3rd edition?
I believe it was.
Yeah, so we're with Volo's Guide to Monsters, we're seeing a lot of those characters, kind of the iconic characters from 3rd edition resurface.
It's read by, or the note is from Gimbal, the treasure hunter, which I believe was
the gnome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a little bit of the throwback, a little nostalgia, kind of cool.
So, I mean, if you're new to the game, either in 4th or 5th, these might just be names thrown in there. But if you've been playing around for a while,
there's some Easter eggs.
Yeah, it's nice.
It is cool, and without that, without the nostalgia, it's still cool flavor text.
What it lets you know, like, all right, these guys just took on a dragon, unbeknownst to the people tracking it, got in and out of the camp, and no one knew a thing. All
right, so here, I'm going to read the headings real quick, and then we'll dive into them. So we got humble guardians, natural druids, hidden shepherds, outcast adventurers. And again, you have Firbolg names and Firbolg traits.
Right.
The Humble Guardians, it basically speaks to just, you kind of summed it up in that quote, is the fact that they protect the forest, they don't want things to happen to the forest, and technically, if they've claimed the forest under their protection, things are not going to happen on their watch, and they'll do whatever it takes to make that so.
Right.
And it also goes into how they're very gentle in their ways, but they will become more forceful as necessary.
I actually, went into the section, natural druids, and that's like, all right, these guys are giant creatures. I mean, they're descended from giants. They're 7 to 8 foot tall, but strength isn't their primary stat. It's wisdom.
Correct.
So they are naturally attuned to druidic magics. They actually do get some spells, which we'll get into later, but wisdom is their spellcasting modifier. So I'm like, you know what, this is really neat. I could almost envision, like, they would have not an adventuring party, but like their guards could be druids, and they could be wild shaped out there running around, and you would just, it's just an animal, no big deal.
Yeah, they could be amongst you, and you would never even know. The squirrels begging for food could be Firbolgs.
So it totally is like, well, the next time I send my adventuring party into the forest, I want to use these guys as NPCs and see who picks up on it. See how they react and see how they do. And they're a way to actually have some fun encounters without your PCs really knowing what's going on.
Now, I don't believe we get a Firbolg monster entry, so you would basically have to take their traits and bolt them onto the NPCs in the back of this book or the back of your monster manual.
Right, you could mash it up with something and make it work. Wouldn't be that much of a problem.
Maybe even, like, if you wanted, like, a base, you could kind of maybe modify an ogre.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, ogre or half ogre.
Yeah, something along those lines. So after natural druids, we have hidden shepherds. And this is a section that really speaks to, even more so than humble guardians, is what they're willing to do and what lengths they're willing to go to defend the forest they're in.
Well, I mean, it says it in both the hidden shepherds and the natural defenders, where like they're willing to starve themselves in times of famine rather than allow the animals to go hungry.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, like, they spend the bountiful seasons collecting extra berries and nuts and things of that nature, and they put them out for wild animals. So, like, every Firbolg has a little bit of a crazy homeless pigeon feeder in them.
Or the crazy cat lady.
Or a crazy cat lady, yes.
But it's just, I think it goes one step further, too. They just respect and revere nature so much more than a normal folk could understand.
Yes, and also it also makes them seem a little bit more oriented towards woodland creatures than the natural surrounding itself. I mean, they obviously respect that as well.
Right.
But a lot of times, like, druids will revere more of the nature aspects of, like, the terrain, more so than the animals inhabited is.
Well, I think they do rank the animals higher
Than a tree.
But to them, the trees are really the bastion of what life and nature are. So they absolutely do respect it. If you go in and fell a tree for no reason other than to just fell it, they're going to have an issue with that.
Yeah. My point is their emphasis is a little bit different.
I would agree.
Than maybe your druid of the land. So I found that part. It's a little bit interesting. And it also makes a distinction, and it also speaks to me, what kind of druid they're probably going to be.
Right.
So with that, we also go into...
We have Outcast adventurers, and we don't have quite as many tables as we did for the last race we went over, but there's still a table to go with. The Outcast adventurers, it gives you a breakdown of why you might be an adventurer that's a Firbolg, as opposed to a normal race. Because typically, Firbolgs want to be part of the clan. They want to be together and protecting what they call home.
It is kind of cool that they, for nearly all of the races in here, they do add like these extra tables. And we're gamers; we like to randomly roll things. I think.
Well, I mean, part of it is, yes, people do like to roll on tables. But if you want to just choose, you can, or you can use it. Okay, well, this is a guideline.
Are you sure it says D8 here? It doesn't say choose anywhere.
It's an option.
Oh, okay.
Because as you notice, that's over here, not under the traits.
That is
true.
So
I don't have to do it. So you've got Outcast for murder, Outcast for severely damaging home territory. Now, home territory means anywhere that they claim. They don't name things. They feel there's no need for it. And we'll get into that in the next section. Clan slain by invading humanoids. Clan slain by dragon or demon. Separated from tribe and lost. Homeland destroyed by natural disaster. Personal quest ordained by omens. And dispatched on a quest by tribe leaders. Yeah,
when you read through everything else, even before you get Outcast Adventure section, right? Everything else just screams, these guys need a very specific reason to be out adventuring in a party. This is very far from what would be normal for them.
Right. And when you actually read through some of the stuff, you might get kicked out of your tribe because you killed a sacred animal, or because you allowed a sacred, plant to die or get damaged in some way, shape, or form. And as always, when I start reading this kind of stuff, my brain is like, all right, well, how would I make my character? What kind of things would I want to do? And my brain initially went to, okay, well, what if in home, as the Firbolgs would call it, if there was like a lone rare flower and it was like the only one known in the region, and I somehow was doing something and I messed it up, and I have to go find another another
you stepped on it.
Go find another one and bring it back to home safely so that it's still here without damaging wherever else it is.
You know what that kind of makes me think of a little bit when you say that? It makes me think of the movie WALL-E. When they find like the single sprout growing.
There's I didn't even think that, but yeah, I mean, you could definitely have some Wally-isms in that. But I mean, that's where my brain went to. I'm like, well, that's a great thing because I'm looking for something that might not have any material value, and the DM could throw it wherever he felt like, and it would be a cool quest for that character to do, so that he would be able to come back home.
I went a little darker. Like when I was thinking about things, I'm like, there was a couple things like for somehow you enter a pact that would be completely unacceptable for your people, your clan, your tribe, like a fiend, a fiend pack or an old one, or whatever.
Right.
Maybe you get tricked or however it happens, but you enter this pack, you're kind of marked by that being. You're not going to be welcome anymore. Mm-hmm. The other one was, all right, your forest gets decimated, your tribe is decimated, and you become an Oath of Vengeance paladin.
So you went towards the rare angle of classes, and I didn't even get to class yet. I just thought on concept of where you started.
Well, yeah. So I kind of intermingled those things.
Right.
Yes.
So getting into the Firbolg names. As I briefly mentioned, they don't like to name things.
They don't do names. They just don't.
They don't feel the need. Like,
this is home.
Those are trees. The trees aren't named. The wolves don't have names. Why should we have names? So when they come to an adventuring party and people are like, oh, well, I'm Fred and I'm George. It's like, I'm a Firbolg.
It actually talks about them taking on names as a form of hospitality towards others. So they kind of do they just kind of go with the flow. All right, that's what you guys like. I can do that.
Sometimes Firbolgs adopt the nicknames or titles. Outsiders give them under the assumption that those who need names can call them whatever they wish.
Yes.
And it does so with places as well. So if the town says, or if the people of the town of Gryffindor call it Gryffindor, they'll abide by that. They're not going to be like, oh, well, let's go to your home. They do have the ability to acknowledge that. They are wise.
Yes.
So, into the traits, as I said before, their primary stat is wisdom. They got a +2 to that and a +1 to strength.
We get yet another long-lived race. Mm-hmm. Mature at 30, live up to 500 years, so that puts them on par with elves.
Alignment, they lean towards neutral good, and if they go evil, they're almost an abomination to the race and are enemies of the tribe.
Yeah, so essentially, if you go evil and you're a Firbolg and you're a ranger, your favorite enemy is probably Firbolgs, or at least their ranger's favorite enemy is you.
Well, I think you could go what if you had some what if you went with the invading humanoids, slaughtered the forest and all of your tribe. You could just be like, all right, I snapped. I'm now evil, and I'm hunting this race to extinction because they hunted mine.
Could do that.
So it's a bend, it's a twist, but it doesn't really matter because there's none of your tribe is left.
Right, but then if you do encounter other Firbolgs, they detect evil on you, or they witness atrocities that maybe you commit that you believe are justified,
right?
But they're going to be horrified. So yes.
So size, as I said before, they're between 7 and 8 feet tall, weighing at 240 to 300 pounds, and the kicker is you're still medium.
Yes.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. Speed, you're in at 30 feet, so no extra bump for your height. And then we move into your three sources of magic. You get detect magic and disguise self. Again, as I said, wisdom is your spellcasting modifier for them, and you can use them once every short or long rest is written here. And then also you get the ability to cast, it's technically not a spell. You can just magically turn invisible. So
their disguise self is a little bit better too. They have a larger variance in their height change.
Right, you can shrink up to 3 feet off of your height. And it's generally designed so that they can fit in with everybody else.
Yeah, but it's different than the player handbook spell.
Right.
It's a little bit more.
Right. And then when you turn invisible, it's not like the spell that has any lengthy duration. This is until the beginning of your next turn.
So if you're Firbolg rogue, long enough to get your sneak attack in.
Indeed. And then again, once you use it, you can't do it again until you finish a short or long rest. You get the powerful build similar to what the Goliath have, It doubles your capacity, or your carrying capacity for push, drag, and lift. And then they get the speech of beast and leaf. You can communicate in a limited manner with beasts and plants. They can understand you, but they don't speak back. So it's not like the gnomish thing where you can literally talk to the mice. You can talk to the tree, but you're not getting a message back from it.
Yeah, you also get an advantage on charisma checks when you to influence them as well. So,
right. Now, I kind of thought that was interesting because it's like, all right, you get advantage to do something that you wouldn't normally be able to do before, because without the ability to speak to them, it's like, I'm sorry, I can walk up to a tree and I can give an awesome speech, but it's not going to get swayed by my words. And then the last thing that they get is languages, and here's something that you don't see very often, and that's actually they get Common, Elvish, and Giant.
Yeah, they get extra languages, and they're also getting one of the more uncommon ones as well.
Right. Now, a lot of the other races that we've been seeing in the book have been getting proficiencies, so here they're just going language heavy, and they don't actually have any skill proficiencies.
No, but they have magic. So
I'm not trying to say that they're underpowered. I'm just saying I think they compensated them for the with the languages.
So these guys make good. These guys would make good monks, clerics, druids are their strong suits. They could also do well as paladins and fighters and rangers, and even barbarian, really. Because they at least have the bump to strength, so that any kind of like martial or melee character, they're going to do well as.
Rangers and barbarians do use wisdom, so there's going to be some advantage.
More so ranger than barbarian, but yes.
True. Getting the bump to strength, you can go with any of the martial classes, as you were saying, because that's enough. Okay, well, I'll put my 15 there. That gets you a 16. All right, even if you want to say the wisdom isn't all that important, you put your 8, it bumps it up to a 10. You don't have any minuses.
Now, that being said, too, like, they make awesome nature clerics when they put on their heavy armor and wade into melee combat. Which is, but you know how we feel about that if you watch our other videos. It's weird. And so these guys, you don't really see them, like, I don't see them slathering in armor and doing some of those other things. It's kind of weird. They'd make great Circle of the Land druids, or some of the new options on Arthurcata that were just introduced. Yeah, so when I first thought of druid and Firbolg, I'm like, well, a plus to strength. Your physical stats are kind of useless if you're a druid and you're playing Circle of the Moon.
What if you do it as like a ruse? You get somebody else in the party who happens to look the part, even if it's just they put on a green cloak, and you travel around when there might be combat as an animal companion, and then you go into combat and the thing tries to squish you. Okay, once you've gone through the couple hit points that a squirrel might have, next thing you know, they got a Firbolg in their face.
That would be, but you're not saying Circle of the Moon. You're saying
you go Circle of the Land, and
right.
You just you'd be willing to be a little bit more martial, and that one hit that they're going to give you is going to get padded by the hit points of whatever little tiny creature, and you have the surprise factor. And some DMs might allow that.
Now I'm just thinking. I'm just thinking one of the characters in the party. They're like, "Boo! Go for the eyes!"
But I just think that would be an amusing thing, and especially if it hasn't been done before in the region, there should be some kind of surprise factor when you stab their little critter, and it poofs into essentially a giant-esque form.
Yeah, you think you're slicing a chipmunk, and it turns into an 8-foot Firbolg in your face, and he's angry. Yeah, that could be kind of amusing. Circle of the Land, these guys are born for that, but also the Unearthicana druids, like any of them actually work for this build, because you have the Twilight, which is actually the first one that I thought of. Because I was thinking, like, well, what if your homeland was overrun by undead and you somehow survive?
Right.
Like, now you're really kind of pissy against undead. Well, that makes a natural bent for your druidic magic. they're already shepherds, right? So so the Circle of the Shepherd just is a natural fit.
Absolutely.
And then the Fey one, like if their home is around Fey creatures or the Fey Wild,
I mean, they're already Fey creatures themselves.
well, yeah.
So like, it wouldn't be that far of a stretch to go towards dreams.
Yeah, so they like all of them, they fit really nicely for anything but Circle of the Moon.
Right.
And even Circle of the Moon could work, but I feel like that's a little like mechanically anyway. It's like you're throwing away your +1 to strength. The other thing I thought is, wow, these guys would make a great strength-based monk.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think this is the first time we're seeing strength and
wisdom
wisdom combined.
It's not out there. It's not a common situation.
Now now they're gonna take a little bit of a beating because of they're not going to have the dex or the con, which are really helpful for a monk.
Right.
But you're going to have the wisdom, and if you want to go strength, you're going to have the strength, and their other abilities are kind of interesting to intermingle.
Using the basic stat array, you could have a 16 strength, 16 wisdom.
Yes.
At the start, you're stuck with a 13 and 12 for your dex and con, but I mean it's still at least a +1 to both.
So you could still do it. Right. But that's one way to go.
And it does say that that monks are rare, but I mean, it can happen because let's face it, it's a game of imagination. Make up whatever story you want.
Well, yeah, but in that section they also say basically they name all the classes really. They don't leave any of them out.
Well, they try to give you the idea of, all right, this is where the design standpoint of this is, and here's what folds out. And with that one, it's like, all right, paladins, monks, warlocks are the rarest of the three.
So now, like, I kind of want to go to the back of this book and take the Firbolg from the player section and go to the back of this book for the new NPCs. I want to create a Firbolg Blackguard. I don't know why. Just because it doesn't make sense. Maybe loggers wipe out their area. They're really ticked off about it. So now all of a sudden they want to see everything burn, and it almost becomes like that Joker-esque type character.
So do they wield a great club?
They could. Why not?
That's what I see. It's like, all right, you've defiled my homeland. I will use it to bring you down.
Like it could be absolutely terrifying. Like you could basically go with a full plate that's carved out of maybe like, so maybe the whole like tribe gets decimated and even the forest. So he calls upon either dark powers, druidic magic, some combination thereof, to craft from the remains of his people and their home, this full plate made out of wood. With there used to be like an ironwood spell in earlier editions.
Oh yeah.
And also the club. Maybe the club could even be like a bone club that's been fused together from one.
I'm thinking it's made of ash, like not like ash as in fire, but it's ash, the type of wood.
Yeah, that would be cool. But I'm like, if you're gonna go real dark, I'm thinking true. Like some of his tribe, like a bunch of his tribe members got like incinerated, and their massive bones are just fused together, and he carves a bone club out of them. Great club. That
is pretty dark.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if we actually have a great club in this edition to use.
We do.
Nice. But that's kind of the thing. So Firbolg, it's interesting. You can go in a lot of different ways with it. But the question is, how will you guys go with it in your game? Let us know in the comments below. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
Don't forget to check out all the awesome stuff over on nerdarchy.com.
So until next time, stay nerdy.